are cruel and unusual punishment, to say the least. So I finally, about a month ago, 2 months ago, made my mind up and realized that I was not comfortable with what was being done to Bradley Manning at all. I believe in the public right to know. In fact, the legitimacy of a democracy is based on an informed populace. That's why two of the first rights that were given in the American Constitution are freedom of speech and freedom of press. If you remove the information from the citizenry, you no longer have an informed citizenry, and when you no longer have an informed citizenry, you've just kicked the jams out of a democracy. You've just kicked the foundation out from under a democracy. When Bradley Manning can, quote, release, unquote, 700,000 documents that have been kept secret, the big question is not whether Bradley Manning has betrayed his country. The big question is why 700,000 documents were deemed secret to you and me. Why there is an aristocracy of 4 million people who have security clearance. 4 million people. That's a lot of people. That's more than half the population of a country like Cuba.
Yeah.
And those 4 million people have access to information that you and I don't have, but you and I are supposed to have that information too, so we can make up our minds when we go to the ballot box. That's what a democracy is all about.
Yeah, but hold on here, Howard. When we're looking at a case of national security where the information that Bradley as well as Snowden are freely giving out and holding a country and every innocent person hostage because of their own quote unquote ways that they look at things, I don't think that these guys should receive any bloody fair any special treatment. Hey, when it comes to the security of the nation, they knew what they were doing when they crossed that line.
Well, we had, back in the 1940s, something called the Nuremberg trials.
Yep.
And the underlying assumption of the Nuremberg trials was that there's a higher morality, and that sometimes if you see your government doing something that is terribly wrong, it is your obligation to step aside from your loyalty to your government, even if you are in the military, and to adhere to the higher morality. I believe, you will disagree with me on this, but I believe that Snowden and Manning were holding to that higher morality. I believe that the necessity of keeping us informed is so basic to a democracy that it's incredible. A democracy works on the basis of what in computer science is called a distributed intelligence. And it means that if there are 315 million people in the United States, those people's brains have to be operating at top capacity in order to make collective decisions that have a wisdom that most decisions that it's not necessarily there in the head of one single president or just 300 Congress people. And that the need for that information is vital, and it's vital to the security of a nation. It's vital to the very fabric of the nation being what it means to be, what it sets out to be, a democracy, a we the people democracy. We the people need the information. Now, there are certain things you cannot let us know. You do not tell us when we are moving in on Osama bin Laden and exactly when we're going to attack him, and that we know his location. Those are basic logistical, tactical things. But most of the things that were released by Bradley Manning, most of the things that were released by Edward Snowden were not these kinds of nitty-gritty, tactical, logistical things that from which the enemy could benefit. They were things from which you and I
Well, wait a sec. Hold on here. Whoa. When it comes to Edward Snowden, the information that he released tipped the hand to the terrorists on what the U.S. government, especially the NSA, was capable of.
My guess is that any enemy worth its salt would know all of that already. I mean, with 4 million people in the secrecy elite, it's very easy to get leaks of that information. My guess is that the only people who didn't know that were us.
But did we need to know?
Yes.
Why?
We absolutely needed to know.
Why, Howard?
We need to know, for example, there's a parallel court system. There's a security court system. We need to know that security court system's judges have all been appointed by just one person, a right-wing head of the Supreme Court. We need to know that all of the decisions that it's making are being made in secret, and that it has said yes to every request but one. for the right to examine stuff. We need to know that we're being spied on because that's not supposed to be the nature of this country. We need to know most especially that a Bradley Manning, look, we have a Constitution. The Constitution guarantees a right to a speedy trial. Bradley Manning did not get one. None of us get one. The justice system, the injustice system in the United States is ferociously off track. It is not what the Constitution guarantees us. We need to know that this guy was being held under a cruel and unusual punishment. We need to know that we are all being spied on. And I don't see any way in which our knowledge of the fact that we are being spied on helps Al-Qaeda.
But listen, if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear. It's only the people who have something to hide that get paranoid. And there's a lot of paranoia going on because, in my opinion, that means there are a lot of people out there who are doing a lot of shady things and they feel they might get actually caught and be held accountable for what they're doing.
Well, that's, first of all, if you've got a court system that is able to make its own laws in secret, no one knows the set of precedents that they are building.
Okay,
and those precedents are law.
Speaking about the court system in the United States, look at what happened with Zimmerman and Martin.
Right.
You know, the community, the ethnic community screamed loud and clear that you know, there was a big injustice, that they wanted Zimmerman arrested, they wanted him held accountable. He was arrested, he went to trial, he was found not guilty. So what do? They didn't get the verdict they like. They're demonstrating, they're yelling that because it was fixed. You know, it's the suppression again. I'm like, come on, give your head a shake. You can't have it both ways.
Well, you know, I have this YouTube series, Howard the Among Us, and we get up to, we've had over 750,000 hits for one of our YouTubes. And I did one on this subject, and I was very disturbed about it, but a little bit differently than you are. I'm disturbed because this is a battle of racisms. Because basically the white community, out of racial loyalty, racism, wanted to see Zimmerman exonerated. The black community, out of sheer racism, anti-whiteism, pro-blackism, wanted to see Zimmerman hung. And then there's another white community within the white community. Remember, every community is made up of subcultures. And there is a white subculture that's anti-white. It's the liberal left subculture. And it, too, wanted to see Zimmerman hung. Nobody really was concerned about whether the facts of the case. They wanted Zimmerman hung as they either wanted him exonerated as a symbol or they wanted him hung as a symbol.
Let me ask you something here. If the roles would have been reversed and it was Martin who shot Zimmerman, would there have been this big fiasco?
No.
Of course not.
No, of course not, because we've gone overboard. We've taken one racism and we've replaced it with another racism.
Exactly.
We've taken an anti-black racism, we've replaced it with an anti-white racism, and we need to know that we have to stop being racist and start being humanists. And we have to be for the human rights of George Zimmerman, who happens to be half Hispanic, to make things even more complicated, for the rights of a Trayvon Martin. There's no way that two guys should get into a head-bashing contest. It should be known that that kind of thing is not allowed. But then again, there's something else that should be known. The stand your ground law cannot be turned into an excuse to become vigilantes in a free society, no matter what people say about the Second Amendment. And I'll get a lot of flack for this. The Second Amendment does not guarantee the personal right to carry arms.
It doesn't.
It guarantees the right to a well-regulated militia.
Yes.
And for the sake of a well-regulated militia, individuals may have weapons.
But of course, going back to the time when the Constitution was written, the Founding Fathers had no vision that AK-47 and all these other automatic weapons would be at the beck and call
of anybody who wanted to go out to a gun show.
Exactly.
And absolutely. And there's another problem here, and that is in the days of the stand, there is this group that's supported by 300 corporations that puts out cookie-cutter laws, right-wing laws. and then shoves them down the throat of whatever municipality or whatever state will accept them.
Sure.
And that's where the stand your ground laws came from, this group. And in the days when the stand your ground laws were first being instituted, which was not long before the Trayvon Martin incident took place, there was a lot of enthusiasm over the phrase, the only thing that stops a bad man with a gun is a good man with a gun. Well, look, whenever I think of a, quote, good man with a gun, I think of myself on Fifth Avenue, approximately at 47th Street, where there are hundreds of people in the street, and somebody being mugged and whipping out his gun.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to shoot the guy who's mugging him.
Yeah.
Well, do you know who's going to get shot if I'm in that crowd? I'm going to get shot. We can't count on anybody being a superb aim. Even policemen who practice all the time are not superb aims. And when you take a gun out, you mow down a dozen innocent civilians. Well, I do not think that anything in the Constitution guarantees the right to mow down a dozen innocent civilians when you have a problem. That's why we take authority, we take violence, we take guns, and we put them in the hands of the police. And that's what gives us a civil society. The gun fanatics are destroying the fabric of a civil society.
You know, the world is crazy. We are following a story that we've been able to track down to a former internet radio talk show who's spreading the rumor that the Boston Marathon was a black op, just like 9/11 was.
Oh, yeah, that's being spread, and it was precisely that kind of crazy rumor that the Tsarnaev brothers were into. Yep. And guess who's in favor of a lot of those rumors? Who's pushing them? Big time. It's the government of Iran. Now, that sounds really weird. But, not
really. It doesn't sound weird at all.
Well, they're pushing them because they want to push the idea. I mean, how do I know this? You know that I appear on a frequent basis on Iranian television.
Yep. Yes, you do.
You know that I may write that my book title may sound as if I'm a wacko when I'm talking about the Muhammad Code, Why a Desert Prophet Wants You Dead. But I'm taken seriously as somebody who knows what he's talking about in both Saudi Arabia and Iran, because both Saudi Arabian and Iranian TV have me on a regular basis. And one day they had me on Iranian TV on a show whose basic premise was, well, of course it was the Zionists. Well, I'm a Zionist, Rob. I'm a Jew, you know. Yeah. There are only 16 million of us in the world, with a tiny little number, less than many Islamic.
Hey, Howard, I'm going to ask you to hold that thought. I've got to take my final break. Please stand by. Howard Bloom is my special guest, a great guy. And in my books, he's one of the most credible people on this planet. www.howardbloom.net. His new book, The Muhammad Code, Why a Desert Prophet Wants You Dead. Visit his website. The links are there, and we'll also have a link to the book on our website, xzoneradiotv.com. We'll be back after this break. Don't go away. With each new extreme weather event or terrorist act, it becomes increasingly obvious that we live in uncertain and challenging times. We all buy car insurance. Why not collapse and catastrophe insurance? Matthew Stein, an MIT-trained engineer and green builder, has written 2 outstanding books to help people prepare, plan for, and deal with everything from minor situations lasting a few days to full-on collapse. Matt's first book, When Technology Fails, is a manual for self-reliance, sustainable living, and surviving the long emergency. This massive book covers the gamut from first aid and emergency preparedness to alternative healing, renewable energy, primitive living skills, and 18th century technologies that could be critical to your comfort and survival in a long-lasting crisis. Matt's second book, When Disaster Strikes, is a comprehensive emergency preparedness handbook and survival guide. When Disaster Strikes is an essential item for every family's go bag. Both books are available at all usual sources. There's a wealth of totally free information posted at whentechfails.com, and author-signed copies may be purchased at mattstein.com. That's www.whentechfails.com and www.mattstein.com.